Welcome to episode 5A of Successful Demo. In each episode, we'll analyze the theoretical and practical aspects of one or more newly released cards. Today's card of the day is actually Alice Merchant from the Blood and Water data pack. It's not in the latest data pack, so I believe a few of you have already tried this ID out and probably have some things to say about it. But for those of you who have not, here's a quick rundown of this ID and some detailed explanations about some of the subtleties of this ID. For starters, it's a 50-15 ID, so just like Valencia, you are penalizing yourself by starting with this ID into playing 5 extra cards in your deck, making it slightly more inconsistent, a bit harder to find the pieces you need, particularly your breakers. This can be a problem because Anarchs don't have a reliable way to find breakers, unlike Special Order for Crims and SMC for Shapers. Now let's look at the upsides of this ID. This ID triggers before the archives access. It triggers off successful runs on archives, and it doesn't replace the access, which means that you get to access the card that the corp trashed due to this ID ability right after they trash it, which is really nice. This means that they can't safely trash an agenda without you stealing it. And also important to note, there isn't actually a paid ability window between the corp trashing a card and you accessing the card. They have to use paid abilities before the successful run trigger occurs, which means that they cannot pitch an agenda and then shuffle it immediately with a Raz Jackson. That doesn't work. So those are the limitations that the court has to work around. Another important thing to note is that Alice Merchant trashes from HQ, not R&D. This is actually quite important. A very important distinction between Alice and, say, Noise, another disruptive ID. With Noise, you're just trying to plink away at random agendas from the top of R&D, whereas with Alice Merchant, you can actually disrupt their hand if they are playing combo decks or asset spam decks. As I mentioned in previous videos, asset spam decks love having lots of cards in their hand so that they can drop lots of assets on their turn. Combo decks, on the other hand, do want to hold their combo pieces, say 24/7, close accounts, hard-hitting news in their hand, and Alice Merchant disrupts that pretty well. So yeah, Alice Merchant fulfills a different role to an ID like Noise. And finally, it's important to note that just like Noise, there is pressure for the corp to ice archives because of the ID ability, and as a result, typically what happens is that an important ice will actually go on archives, and that means that important ice is not guarding a more important server like HQ, R&D, or their remote. So this is a good way to slow down the corp from turn 1. Some downsides to playing Alice Merchant. This ID ability is actually not very powerful by itself. When you put it side by side along the likes of other disruptive IDs like Edward Kim's hammering and Wizard's asset trashing, Alice actually is pretty lackluster, and that's mostly because the corp actually gets to choose the card that they will trash. Of course, they will pitch the least important card that's not an agenda. As a result, what typically happens is that they'll pitch either an unnecessary economy card because you can't contest the economy. You know, you're not wizards, so you can't trash assets. So they are likely to have more economy as a result. Either that, or they'll decide to trash ice instead, irrelevant ice that might not help the matchup. So Alice actually can be of rather limited effect in certain matchups. I would say it's an annoying ability to deal with as a corp, but it's not something that is game changing, you know, like Edward Kim hitting a Scorched Earth from hand, or Wizard just completely suppressing the asset spam board state. Alice does not have that capability. We also should note that Alice Merchant works best when archives is uniced. As a result, just like certain criminal IDs, like Gabriel Santiago is a good example, you want Alice's ability from turn 1. The implication of this is you don't want to build a rebirth deck. Val Rebirth into Alice is an option, but for the most part, if you are building your deck around Alice Merchant, you want to start as Alice Merchant, not use it as a rebirth target when you do find your one-off rebirth. Finally, we'll note that this, as we mentioned earlier, the corp has an impetus to ice archives, and as a result, once there is res ice archives ice, the prospect of running archives to trigger Alice's ability becomes a lot worse. Remember that her ability is only mediocre at best. You don't want to be paying lots of credits just to trigger Alice's ability. After all, you are not going to get any extra accesses in archives either, since that's usually a server that you don't really run. So looking at these, how do you build an Alice deck? I don't know, can you tell me? If you have built an Alice deck already, if you have played with one before, do share it in the comment section. I'd like to see what everyone has come up with. It will be an interesting time to compare and contrast what decks you have and what I'm about to show you. So from our pre-analysis, we've noted two things. One is that you want to make those archives runs as valuable as possible because her ability only does so much. So you want something to synergize as you make your archives runs. And as a result, I have run-based cards in my deck. We're looking at 2 Temujin contracts and, very importantly, 3 Data Suckers. Most decks that run Data Suckers only have 2 copies, but we're going all the way up to 3. Partially because it's a 50 card deck and partially because you really want to see one early. Data Sucker holds the breakers all together. It helps Mimic and York break ice that is higher than Strength 3, and it also synergizes very well with Parasite. So I'm definitely thinking 3 Data Suckers correct in Alice Merchant because you want to run archives anyway, and Data Sucker gives you so much more value when you do make those archives runs. It's also worth mentioning that Data Sucker is not something that you want to be charging up 4 clicks a turn. Usually you only want to run once or twice just to get 1 or 2 suckers a turn, and Alice's ability fits very well into that since Alice only triggers once per turn. Getting 1 sucker token per turn and an Alice trash is very good value. Add on a Temujin on that and you're good to go. The other problem we noted with Alice Merchant is that her ability is only mediocre at best. She is only really effective if the corp is forced to has very few choices in trashing their cards, and one way to do this is to pile up the HQ pressure by playing HQ pressure cards such as Hacktivist Meeting and more. These cards increase the number of cards trashed from HQ, and this gives the corp a harder time deciding what to trash when you do go in for your Alice Merchant mill. So as a result, I feel that it is rather pretty much a no-brainer to run both Hacktivist and more in Alice Merchant. Hacktivist gives you coverage against the likes of asset spam decks because you do not have the wizard credits to keep up with asset spam. You need another way to deal with that, and Hacktivist is incredibly good at doing so. It really punishes asset spam corps that much more, and when you pile in Alice's ability, they really cannot sustain the asset spam without losing all their cards from their hand. Once you get more up, it becomes even more annoying because more is super powerful compared to Alice Merchant. It trashes randomly from HQ. The corp doesn't get to choose. So once you pile up all these HQ pressure, you could very well get to a point where the corp is sitting with 1 or 0 cards in hand every single turn because they just can't afford to they can't afford to defend archives and any of their servers at the same time because more gets triggers, Alice gets triggers, before you know it, the corp has no cards left in hand. It's pretty amazing against combo decks as well, and let's see how it does when we are faced up against HB. Today our opponent is Pinsel, who is known for playing his special variant of HB. It does run Estelle Moon, but is by no means a HB spam deck. It just uses Moons as a forward tempo card, but it does most of its scoring via fast advance with shipment from Sands. Just a side note, prior to this I've been playing a bunch of runner games. A lot of my opponents end up being Jinteki Prison Bioethics decks, so yeah, it's quite terrible in terms of getting good games to upload and show you all viewers, but I finally found some good ones with Pinsel, so here we go. My opening hand is I think I mulliganed it. I think I kept it because it Mimic. Mimic is so important against HB. With only 2 Mimics in your 50 card deck, you want to see one early so that you can start running Ice without worry about Architect. Keep note that while most Ice you can deal with a combination of Parasucker, Architect's not one of them because you cannot trash Architect. So Mimic is super high value against ETF. You'll notice that my turn 1 was install Sucker, install Peddler, run Archives, run R&D. This is a huge value play that gets me 2 Sucker counters and Alice Mill, so that's pretty good. The Alice Mill turned out to be a Friends in High Places, so 1 less Friends in High Places for my opponent to use. I'm not going to complain about that. I continue on my turn, and this is where having 3 Dale Suckers in your deck starts counting against you when you draw all 3 copies in quick succession. You really wish that were another money card instead. Anyway, you notice that I've liberated accounts in my hand and I really want to play it, but I'd rather wait until my daily cast ticks down for me to get 6 credits. I'd rather the daily cast give me clickless credits than for me to click for credits manually just to activate liberated, which requires clicks to take off anyway. Unfortunately, I'm going to put myself further away from that goal because I've just ran R&D to trash and advanced assembly lines. I do not want to give my opponent free money in that regard. On the Alice run on this turn, I managed to hit hedge fund as well. So good that I managed to disrupt some of my opponent's economy, but all that's going to go down the drain when they actually reveal an Estelle Moon with 3 cards. They immediately popped the Estelle Moon because they saw Rumor Mill in my bin that was ditched by the peddler. I really wish I had it in my hand instead, but if there's an upside, it's that at least my opponent's respecting the threat of Rumor Mill and popping the Estelle Moon prematurely, so I don't have to waste a click running it. Now, my opponent prioritizes icing archives before R&D. This kind of indicates to me that they do have some cards in hand that they don't want to ditch, probably agendas. Running HQ would be nice here, but I'm afraid of Architect as usual. I need to get the Mimic down first, then I can run. Drawing to gamble is a very good thing now. And then I play Peddler, which is arguably a mistake. I should be playing Mimic instead so that I can threaten a click 1 run on HQ next turn. So this is a misplay here. Take note that this is my first time playing this Alice deck, so there are going to be a lot of misplays from my end. I hope you understand. I'm not that good a player. Ice on R&D finally comes down, and then Ice on HQ. So even if I install the Mimic, well, that's not going to get me very far. I'm not going to run a double Ice HQ. As Alice, you typically want to pressure HQ before R&D, because when you get your Alice triggers off, the HQ agenda density increases. This is a subtlety that you don't really observe from the runner's end, but it's pretty obvious when you think about it. So HQ should be my first server of choice to run. And yeah, naturally that would be the case, except that now I've been distracted into running this Cyberdex Virus Suite in the remote. That's getting trashed. Well, so much for all collecting all those data suckers in terms 1 and 2. That Cyberdex completely erased any progress that I had, and with Ice on all 3 centrals now, I can't install my Temujin. This is very unfortunate, and this is going to be a very big problem for me. Now my most reliable money card is actually Liberator accounts, not Temujin. Until I find all my breakers, I don't think I can really afford to install, take the tempo hit of installing Temujin when my opponent can simply ice that server heavily, given they have 37 credits. Why are they so rich? Are they trying to mid-season boom me? Who knows? Anyway, I draw into a bunch more cards. Hacktivist looks like a very tempting card to play right now, but given they're so rich, they can easily Baltic an agenda out to clear the current, so I'm not feeling the Hacktivist right now. What I do feel is that I could pressure them into icing R&D more by dropping the medium here. My next turn's play would be run R&D and face check whatever ice they have. It seems like an okay play. In the meantime, I'm ditching a bunch of cards that I don't really want to ditch. Baguette would be really nice. Speaking of Baguette, Baguette doesn't work the same way as Alice Merchant or More does. It mills cards from R&D instead of HQ, so it doesn't actually contribute towards the hand pressure aspect of this deck. Rather, it gives you a reason to run HQ. Anyway, I'm going to run the remote here and get rid of the Jackson because I don't like Jackson Howard's face. Instead, my opponent shows me fetch out 3's face and I slap in the face with 3 clicks. Not much I can do about that. Losing an entire turn to fetch out kinda sucks, but what can you do? That Jackson is going to cause me a lot of trouble. I want to get rid of it. Jackson is a very good card for recovering against hand pressure. It allows you to draw 2 cards with a single click. Am I sounding like Alex White here? So you don't want your opponent to draw lots of cards because it makes the trashing decision on Alice triggers very easy. When they have a lot of cards to choose from, they can easily pick a card that is of low value and trash it to Alice Merchant. So what you want to do is to kill those Jacksons. You don't want them on the table. Also, Jackson doesn't help because it allows them to recycle agendas that they previously ditched with Moore and Alice Mills. So obviously, Jacksons are a very high priority target against Alice. Interestingly enough, there is actually a Project Vitruvius in Archives. My opponent decided to ditch a Vitruvius. Remember that they just used the Jackson, so the Vitruvius was just put in there by this Alice Merchant run. Very interesting. Their other 4 cards must be very high value. I'm not sure what they are, but it must be pretty important cards that they have. Something like Baltic Labor and Vitruvius, yeah? So in any case, they do manage to get a Vitruvius with 1 counter on it. Because I didn't check the fetch out remote. Yeah, so that's not good for me, and I finally get some passive economy going. My economy has been languishing most of this game, and my draw hasn't been the best. Clicking to draw feels really bad, but I finally gotten some money going, and I can get the draw going with the Earthrise in my hand. Now, my opponent should be trying to rush out here before I get set up, and sure they do. They put another item in the fetch out remote. demanding me, do you check this? If you don't check it, it could be my fourth agenda point. If you do check it, you're gonna spend your entire turn doing so, slapping Fairchild, what's its face called. Yeah, you don't want to do that. I know I don't. What I really want to do now is to find my York. Once I have one sucker token and a York, I can get past Fairchild 3 pretty trivially. I have 2 Yorks in my deck, but obviously being a 50 card deck, you can't expect to find it in good time. So instead of trying to challenge a remote that it's not going to be plus tempo for me, I decide to go for R&D instead. Given that I already have medium pressure, it only makes sense to run R&D. I see an Eli here. Clicks or credits? Or a combination of both. That's quite tricky because actually I'm quite worried that spending credits here, I'll hit an Architect and only have 1 credit to break it. Thankfully, it's a Fairchild 3 that I can break with clicks, so I didn't have to worry about Architect Fires, sorry. Lucky me, sniped a global foot off the top of R&D, giving me 1 medium counter and 4 points. So now I'm in the lead. Things are starting to look okay. That was a very lucky snipe. My opponent's still pretty rich though. Remember, they were on 37 credits. Now they have less than half of that, but still rich enough to score an agenda or protect HQ with their 2 unrest ice. So I'm not out of the woods just yet. And given that I don't have a long-term solution to either of the Fairchilds protecting the important servers, the scoring remote and R&D, I do need to actually worry about my future. I can't sustain runs on R&D this way, obviously. That's not good for me. So what I really want to do right now is dig through my deck and find myself the York. So the question here is, do I make money by hitting Liberated and then drop the Earthrise, or do I go for the I've Had Worse draw? I've Had Worse draws me cards more quickly, but Earthrise gives me more benefits in the long run. It's very close. I can't really tell which is better. But now all my plans are thwarted when my opponent threatens asset spam. So they play Cyberdex and Advanced Lines using Friends. The Cyberdex server contains an asset. I don't know what the asset is, but it's there. So I'm thinking right now, okay, there's a Cyberdex in server in the second remote. So obviously there's no point in running R&D because they can just clear virus counters easily. Yeah, so I do have to go for the Cyberdex and trash it. But I need to make sure that when I run it, I have enough money to trash any threatening assets in that server as well. And I'm thinking Jeeves is probably the biggest threat right now. So I'm gonna hit Liberated once and then run to see what's all this fuss about. I'm going to see a Cyberdex, obviously, that is going to get trashed. And I see a Jeeves. This Unrest Jeeves is going to cause a lot of problems, so I'm going to trash it here. Do you see the mistake I made? Yes, I shouldn't be trashing assets. I'm not Wizard! I'm playing this as though I'm Wizard. I spent so much money dismantling that server when I should be doing Alice things. And what's more Alice than playing Hacktivist from my hand? Knowing that it was a Cyberdex there, I should have played Hacktivist. If you want to purge my virus counters, you have to pay 1 random card from your hand. If you want to rest a Jeeves to score an agenda, you have to pay 1 random card from your hand. That makes so much more sense. I should have done that. Silly me. So yeah, I think that was a big misplay on my part. I need to be... This is how you control assets as Alice Merchant. You can't really afford to trash that many assets. There are some important things that you need to trash, sure. You have to trash selectively, but you shouldn't be trashing unrest assets unless they're super important. And yeah, make them pay with hacktivist mills instead of spending your own proper credits to trash stuff because you need the money more. So that was a big mistake from me. They could easily get the Jeeves back, as you see right here, with the advanced lines installing the Jeeves and then scoring an IFCOM. This is bad. This is really, really bad. Yeah, so what do I do here? So they use a Vitruvius counter to score the IFCOM. I think they got the Jeeves back with the Vitruvius counter, which allowed them to make that play. But now that they have 3 Vitruvius agenda counters, they can easily score a food for the win with double shipment. So now my priority shifts to denying them the win by getting lots of Alice triggers and more triggers. No, I don't have more. This is looking really grim for me. Can I rush out an agenda win instead? Maybe. I'm going to run Archives here with a Temujin on. Again, as I mentioned, this is how you get value. Even though I'm paying 2 credits for the Eli run, getting an Alice trigger is not enough, but if I'm getting 4 credits off a Temujin and a Data Sucker counter, it works out just fine for me. except that I'm not getting a data sucker counter because there's a freaking CVS in the bin. This CVS is the bane of my life. Oh man, yeah, CVS actually wrecks my deck pretty hard. Who runs CVS nowadays? Yeah, this deck is very heavily leaning on virus counters because you need virus counters to break ice. You need virus counters to break Fairchild 3s, to use parasites, to make your runs cheaper. Not having sucker counters is very suffocating for me. It really does limit my options very hard. As though not having a York hurts bad enough, not getting sucker counters also sucks. Now, my opponent actually chose to ditch an ABT with the Alice Mill, putting me at match point. This is a very interesting decision that tells me a lot about their hand. It tells me that they are gonna find a win very soon, so I need to run HQ ASAP. They probably have the winning global food in hand, maybe a biotic, maybe double shipment, I don't know. But I'm very worried right now. With an efficiency committee with all 3 counters on, all he has to do is to find double shipment and he can go to town with the win. So it is very, very harrowing for me. I need to get my mills, my Alice Merchant and the more that's in my hand going ASAP. But can I? Can I? He's using his efficiency committee counters, all of them installed. Shipment on the Sansan to score his 5-3 to pull the game from under my feet. Oh, that's so annoying. I wish I had one more turn to disrupt my opponent's combo. So let's do some post-game analysis. I think I got the short end of the stick in terms of card draw. Not the best starting hand, and I drew into a lot of dead cards, not to mention not finding my decoder, not finding parasites. I mean, it really didn't help that I was walled by Fairchild 3 the entire game, and not to mention that like key cards like Deja Vu and Rumor Mill ended up being milled by Street Peddlers instead of me drawing into them. All these resulted in me feeling like I had no control over the game state at all, even though I was very close. We ended up with a 6-7 scoreline. I was very close to winning, but I just never felt like I had controlled the entire game simply because of my poor draw. But I think that's also partially glossing over the fact that I misplayed it quite a bunch. Most notably, I'm so used to playing Wizard that I'm kind of playing this deck like I would Wizard, which is definitely the wrong way to go. As you see on the slide here, I am fully aware that as Alice Merchant, you need to use your own tools in your own unique way to deal with the likes of assets in general. Contesting the Cyber decks and the Jeeves was a big mistake when I could have easily induced my opponent to spend precious cards from the hand to hacktivist if they wanted to use those cards. So yeah, I feel like definitely could have played that better. And yeah, the rest of the card draw just came down to standard Anarch problems. In a 50 card deck, you have to expect that at least one of your 3 main breakers will not be seen until the mid to late game. I guess I could shore that up, but it's very difficult to find good infection solutions for that. Something like frantic coding might be good, because yeah, for the most part of the game, it felt like I was just digging through lots of dead cards in my deck just to find the 1 of 2 Yorks that may have been hiding at the bottom of my deck. Maybe playing Wizard would be better, if not for just for the fact that you have a smaller deck size, and the 3 recurring credits help so much in matchups such as these as well. It's too early to tell. Again, if I played this game more optimally, maybe I wouldn't need... Wizard might have been the crutch. Alice may just do just as well, after all. The only reason I actually managed to get to 6 points was because my opponent repeatedly ditched agendas from Alice's abilities. So I definitely wouldn't say Alice's ability is weak. She definitely has her users, and I look forward to testing her out more because there's definitely some potential with this deck. Perhaps this won't be the last time you'll see Alice Merchant on my channel. Hint hint. Well, that's all for this video. Until then, thanks for watching and happy night running. I'll see you around.